Beth Nielsen Chapman is a Grammy-nominated American-based singer-songwriter who has been recording beautiful music since 1980. She has had huge success as a songwriter, writing or co-writing hits for dozens of artists, particularly around the Nashville scene. She continues to record and perform into her mid-60s and has just released her 14th solo album, Crazy Town. And she's touring the UK throughout the autumn of 2022, including 2 dates close to Bradford in Ilkley and Halifax. And I caught up with Beth on Zoom the week before her Ilkley gig, and we had a wide-ranging conversation, mostly about her new album, but also about the creative process of writing songs. I started by putting it to Beth that many of the songs on the new album were in fact old songs.
Yes, I mean, there quite a few of them are new, but there's probably four, maybe three or four that were written a few years back. Probably the oldest one is the song called The Edge, which I wrote in 94, 95, around that time, right after my first husband passed away. And I did a whole album of songs about going through that grief, and it was called Sand and Water. And I was working with Rodney Crowell producing, and he was very definite about not wanting to put too many songs on the record because they were very intense songs, some of them. So the song The Edge didn't quite make it on there. And then every time I'd make a record, I'd pull that song out and go, can I get it on this record? And finally on Crazy Town, there's so many short, up-tempo, kind of fun, wacky songs that it felt like a really nice balance to have a longer song that went, pretty deep. So that one definitely fit the bill.
Beth told me about the track With Time.
There's songs like the song called With Time, which is another ballad on there, which the writing of took about 7 years altogether. The first, the melody was written with my friend Annie Roboff very quickly, and then we spent about 4 years getting most of the lyric, and then there was one word, the word with, that took from year 4 to year 7 before I got that word, and that made the whole song made sense when I found that word.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's funny because when I introduce the song on this tour, I tell that story. I'm like, so this is one word, and it's just such a simple word, with, and people laugh at me, but it was just right in front of my nose the whole time.
I asked Beth about the songwriting collaborations on her new album.
Every co-write is totally different. There's a couple on there that I wrote with two people at one time. I think Hey Girl was written with Jessica Sweetman and Annie Roboff, and so the dynamics are very different from song to song and from co-write to co-write. And then I don't usually look to put any number of songs that I've written by myself or not by myself. I just follow the songs that feel good that I want to put together into a batch, and I know there's a lot of changes in the music business. People do a lot more singles, and young artists especially don't even understand, why should I do an album? I'll just put out a new song every couple of weeks, and I totally understand in this new paradigm why they're doing that. But I'm still a fan of a collection of work that speaks about a thing, and I think if I had to boil down this new album, I think the overarching theme of it is kind of navigating the chaos of life. And what's ironic is that we recorded it before the pandemic came along. So you would think it was a result of the pandemic, but it was actually a premonition to what we were getting ready to go through, I think. So, and also, working with Ray Kennedy, the producer, was so much fun. And we had 12 songs all figured out. And then about the third day into recording, I started remembering these other songs and bringing them in. And he was like, what? Where's this song been? Why didn't you play this for me before? So we ended up cutting 17 altogether. But it was really fun. It was a fantastic band. It was great fun.
I asked Beth about the overall rocky, bluesy sound of the album Crazy Town.
Well, I think I've always had that kind of style in me, and, it's speckled here and there throughout my songwriting career. But I don't think I've ever done an album quite so immediately about, groove and the band as this one. And it was great fun. I mean, I kind of just went for it. I thought I was going to come in and redo the vocals and my guitar, but then when I came back in after all the musicians left, after we cut the basic tracks, I really couldn't get it any better. It just had a kind of a natural live feel to it, which is kind of what people hear when they come hear me perform live, and I've never really captured that on a record before, so I was quite pleased with that. And Ray is just one of those people that has such a good instinct about like which take is the one, and he's just really, really well tuned in that direction. So I was very happy to delegate that to him and trusted his judgment on it. So I was really pleased with how it came out.
The opening track of Crazy Town is a Graham Gouldman collaboration called All Around the World. I asked Beth how she got together with Graham.
Well, that was thanks to Chris Difford of Squeeze.
Okay.
Because he is a friend, and he has done these incredible songwriting retreats every year, usually around Somerset, at a beautiful place called the Pinard House, which is right literally bordering where they have the Glastonbury Festival.
Okay.
So we usually go there, many years in a row. I went for a week just prior to when the Glastonbury Festival. So it'd be early summer or late spring. And Graham was at one of those. And we also worked together at Real World. We were doing a songwriting retreat there one year with Chris Difford. And it's just like going to heaven for songwriters to be in a beautiful place like one of those places, and then have a lovely English breakfast, and then get to write with Graham Gouldman. Well, that particular song we wrote with Gordon Kennedy, who's a fantastic songwriter in Nashville, and Graham happened to be over in Nashville, and we got together to write, and I said, I think he was also writing with Gordon Kennedy at the time, so the three of us got together and wrote that together. And Gordon Kennedy's got an amazing songwriting career. He wrote "Change the World" for Eric Clapton. He was one of the writers on that. Great. We wrote that song together, and I remember Gordon brought in sort of this lilt and this guitar thing, and we wrote it pretty fast. It was so much fun to be with two masters like that,
The second track on Crazy Town talks about women in leadership. I asked Beth if she was aware of issues relating to a woman Prime Minister in the UK in recent weeks.
Well, if you come to my show, I do a little chat about that song before I roll into it, because I don't want to ruffle any feathers. And I basically say this song was written with Keb Mo and John Lewis Parker, and Keb wanted it to specifically not be a political statement more than just a humanitarian statement, that women are smart and capable and there's not enough of them doing things, kind of thing. But we wanted it to be fun and kind of funny. And then right before I count the song off, I say, and I just want to add that I wrote this song with Keb long before, way back when you guys had a guy that was the Prime Minister. And of course now you still have a guy, but in the interim, all that stuff, which we're not going to talk about because we're going to just play you some songs and have some fun. I just say something like, I'm not going to go there because we have our own issues in America. So the world, that's why the record's called Crazy Town. It's a crazy time, and lots of strong opinions. Lots of people are, stressed out in all directions. So I try to ride above it,
Okay.
But I still think the song is true. I think women, women are great when they're put in charge. It kind of makes sense because there's a nurturing sort of side of, that's overgeneralizing, but there's a kind of nurturing thing that women collectively sort of have done historically. And I don't know. I think you're right. I think if you looked at it historically, I think women running countries has actually been more peacemaking than let's build some more guns, which makes sense. But but I know with all the craziness that was going on, with all the shifting going on, I had to say something kind of fun to introduce the song.
Now her new album, Crazy Town, has an interesting cover which appears to show a guy painting the beach. Beth told me about the picture.
So I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for the cover. The record was finished, and I just kept thinking, I don't see another picture of me on the album cover. I just didn't see that visionally, And I was jumping up the, I come in, when I drive up my driveway, I come in the back door of my house, and I run up the stairs, and I come into the den area, and right on the staircase is the beach painter painting, which my brother painted many years ago when my son was 5 years old, and he's now 42. So you can see how old that painting is. And I went right into it. And I thought, oh, so what happened was when, when my son was like 5 years old, um, his dad used to, you know, tell him funny stories and stuff. And we were at the beach, and he said, "Dad, why is the beach white? Why is the sand white?" And his dad said, "Oh, well, there's this guy that comes out at 3 o'clock in the morning. Nobody's ever seen him, but I think he might look a little bit like Santa Claus. And
Yeah.
but he comes out and he paints the beach white every night because it wears off, by the next day. If he doesn't come out and do that, then
Yeah.
it's going to go brown."
I see.
So my poor little 5-year-old son stayed up every night for the next 3 nights trying to see the beach painter. And so I took that painting, and then I added the city myself in the
Okay.
background that's on the cover, because I wanted scrapers from all different major cities. So I kind of had fun with that.
So,
But my
couple of
brother did it, and his name is Robert Nielsen. He's a wonderful artist.
It's a great picture. It's a great cover. Yeah, we should explain to our listeners that, well, they need to just Google the title of your album, Crazy Town, to see what on earth we're talking about at the moment.
Yeah.
Given the mixed messages on some of the tracks on Crazy Town, I asked Beth how optimistic she was for the future of the planet.
I think I'm generally an optimistic person, but I would have to say my optimism has been tested very definitely in the last 6 years. I've been very concerned about the changes that have happened in the media and the difficulty that we have had with people, kind of operating on different beliefs of what's real.
Mm.
And I think it's not just happening in America, but it's definitely gone crazy in America, where you know, good people are watching this channel over here and they're thinking that's what reality is. And then other good people are watching that channel over there. And they're really having a big divide. And I think there's a lot of greed and big entities that have a lot to lose if they don't have the status quo. And I think it's very dangerous for our planet. We're kind of running out of time
Yeah.
to get ahead of climate change. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of concerns. I have two little grandsons, and I really want them to live in a world that's got hope and a future. So I'm worried about that. I am, but I don't let that eat my life. I mean, I get up every morning and I make the best of everything I can positively influence. So I'm in the world as a positive person, but I am deeply concerned about I'm very concerned about the quality of our elections, whether or not we can
Mm.
get out of this quagmire that we're in right now, particularly in America. And I'm sure you have your own version of it over here, where there's, different factions pulling at each other and some very deep dishonesty and things like that. So,
With midterm elections due in the United States and lots of continuing debate over fake news, Beth has recorded a track called The Truth on her new album. She told me about the track.
there's a song on my album called The Truth.
Yeah.
That's and before I sing that in my show, I talk about my sister. And my sister and I have very opposite political views, and we have been working through it. Like we'll schedule time to actually talk about it, and we love each other deeply, and I respect her and love her. But when we talk to each other, it's like e- each of us has the same experience, which is that we look at the other one and say, "You've been brainwashed."
Okay. Yeah.
So it's kind of funny, but not funny. But there is some humor in it. So I talk about that. I said I'm going to dedicate this song to my sister, who I'm still negotiating with to try to see if I can get her to see what I see, and she's trying to do the same thing. And people
Mm.
laugh when I say that, but it is a deep concern because there's only one thing that can be true. There can be a lot of perspectives around what the truth is, but only one thing can actually be what's the true thing. So, and we always end our conversations by saying, "Well, one day I'll be able to prove it to you." And the other one says, "Well, one day I'll be able to prove it to you." So
Yeah.
we haven't gotten too far on resolving it, but we're still hanging in there. We love each other and we are working through it. That's all we can do.
The truth is sleeping in the marrow of the bone. I've written down in my notes. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
some great lines in that song.
I
It,
really am proud of that lyric. Yeah, I remember reading books on philosophy that said a thing is what it is and not another thing. And I mean, you can do semantics all day long, but the truth is always going to come up. I mean, it's going to find its way to the surface. It's sort of like if you get something stuck in your teeth, it's going to come back out. It's not just going to disappear down in there. And there's a little line in there about a little thread just, moving along in the breeze. And I was reading a murder mystery, and it was about somebody that buried someone, and there's just one little piece of thread just got loose. So that's like and I remember that being really deeply visual. There's just going to be some little thing, something you can just follow to see what the reality is. And I think we're in a very big mess right now, but I also think that the truth is going to win out, as it always does.
One of my favourite all-time Beth Nielsen Chapman recordings is the closing song on her last album, Hearts of Glass. The song is called Dancer to the Drum. Beth told me how this song had started out.
And I wrote it when I was very young. I started it when I was probably in my early 20s, because I wrote about, I wrote the first part, fast asleep in the dawn of ages, the soul of every child has waited to be born a stranger underneath the drum of his mother's heart.
Yeah, that's
And
amazing.
I had that, and then that hung out with me for about a year or two. I'll write a verse, and then it'll just kind of hang out, and I don't write the song quickly when it's a song like that. I write it over a period of a couple of years.
Right.
And I'm in good company. I hear that Leonard Cohen did that. Leonard
Okay.
Cohen did that too, so I feel better.
Beth told me about how she started writing a song.
And the funny thing is, honestly, I start with the melody, and then I will always record it because I don't know what's going to fall out of my mouth. And then I will just start going blah, 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 and I mean, I might not even be doing actual real words. I just start making sounds, and what's really fascinating is that so many times, if I go back to that very first blush of a work tape where I'm just getting the melody for the first time, the nonsense words that I'm singing will line up vowels. The vowels will line up perfectly with whatever becomes the final line. So that to me indicates that there's something happening on a very deep level that's sort of underneath my consciousness. And I've learned to trust it and play with it and just sort of see where it takes me. And it's really served me well. And, then I look brilliant when I come up with the final lyric and somebody thinks I just sat there thinking that up. But often it's rendered through this process that's very messy and kind of incoherent. And then all of a sudden it'll sound like, oh, I think I said dancer to the drum. Well, that's an interesting phrase. What if it was dancer to the drum? And then I have something to go on. Then it's like a gift from the other side. It's like a gift from the ether, I call it, or the creative flow, which I think exists outside of us. And those people who are writers and who are actively creating things are just tapping into it. So when I teach workshops on creativity and I talk about creative flow, what I try to convince all of my students of is you already have access to it. So if you're not feeling it and you're not engaging in it or not knowing how to get it to flow, how to flow into it, usually it's something you can change to make yourself more capable of feeling creative. So it's sort of creative therapy that I love doing. I love watching somebody finally get that, and then it's like a light bulb that goes off in their eyes. They go, wait, so I can just fart around here and I can come up with something and build on it, and it won't be that spectacular when it starts, but it might end up being really great. That's exactly how I write.
Beth told me some more about how she views the creative process.
I'm working on a book on this because I find it really endlessly fascinating, and it always comes, another way to explain it comes along literally off the top of my head in the creative flow when I teach. And when I teach, I literally keep something in record because something will fall out of my head in trying to explain the feeling that'll actually be really a clarifying way to put it, So I just live and breathe in this state of creative flow as much as I can.
Do you know
anybody can do it.
When you got the melody, do you have any idea what
Yeah.
the song might be about, or is it simply a melody and then
Not
it's
a
this?
clue.
Really, that's really interesting. Wow.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, a melody will a melody will have a feeling to it. So,
Right.
when I was writing Sand and Water, I was going all alone, all alone, you know, and I was doing the oh 3 times, but I didn't know it was going to end up being all alone 3 times. And even
Right.
the pulse of that 3 times happening in a melody, if I were going to be like trying to make it a song that pierced through people's resistance to feeling their own grief, that would have been a good way to do it. I mean, so you can analyze it and say, well, here's why this is really something that works, because this is happening, then she does this, then she does that. But the very first time I ever taught, I was asked to teach at Berklee in Boston, which is a very prestigious music school. And I had never gone to college, and I, you know, felt really strange being asked to teach at a college. But I went, and the guy, Pat Pattison, who ran the songwriting department, had written in a chapter in his book on lyric writing, he had taken apart 2 of my songs. And so the class that I went to speak in front of had been studying this dissection of my songs for a couple of weeks. And I was so busy at that time, I didn't have a chance to even look over the materials or read his book until I was on the plane. And when I was on the plane and I read how he had taken the song apart, and he's like describing, now you'll notice that Beth relit the chorus with the second verse, and how she did this and how she did that, and all these things I quote unquote did, which I didn't do anything consciously. It just organized itself because I was in the bath of creative flow, and I was trusting and just following things and writing them down and just trying to sort it out. So when I walked into the classroom, I was in a cold sweat, and I went right up to Pat Pattison and I said, listen, I'm not qualified to teach this, because you're talking automatopoeia and all these big words, and you're saying all these things that I did, but I didn't do any of those things. And he goes, that's why I want you to talk to them, because we're analyzing it in retrospect. But I want you to inspire them to know that you don't have to know all that stuff to write a song. And you don't. In fact, the more you get stuck in analyzing it, the less good your song will come out. So I teach writing. I walk into a room and I say, listen, you can have your money back if you came here to learn how to write a song. However, I'm going to teach you how to be uncomfortable. I'm going to teach you how to be comfortable not knowing what you're doing, which is exactly how you write a great song. To be not sure what happens next. That's, by definition, you're on the edge of creativity. If you know what you're doing, then you're repeating something that's known, then you're repeating something. So all of that, you know, is just this journey that I've been on, and I've been trying to explain it to other people as much as I can. But it's magical. It really is. It's a gift. And the big difference is people think, oh, you have a gift. I'm like, no, I don't. I have found a way to have access to the gift that's available for everybody. And I love to teach people how to get that. I love that. It's really fun.
Beth Nielsen Chapman is touring the UK through most of autumn 2022. I asked Beth if she was touring with a band.
I do. I have a fantastic band. A young man named Scott Mulvihill, who is lives in Nashville. He plays upright bass. He plays everything, actually. But he's a fantastic artist. And then there's a young woman named Mia Morris who's playing drums mostly, but she also is a multi-instrumentalist. She was a semi-finalist in America's Got Talent. She's just such a wonderful singer-songwriter. And then Ruth Trimble, who is from Northern Ireland, who has worked with me over the years, probably about 12 years. She's also a multi-instrumentalist. So they're jumping all over different instruments, and I'm even playing bass on a song. It's pretty wild. And it's a really fun show. It's really tight. We have a lot of fun, and we take people through laughs and the depths of all the deep stuff, as well as leaving them, you know, with a good feeling. So
Okay.
it's really been a blast. It's been so much fun.
To what extent do you focus on the new album, or will you play, I suppose, a mixture of that and your greatest hits? Yeah.
Yeah, we do greatest hits. We do a whole section of the show. We do some requests, and
Okay.
and then the songs on the album are so short. The entire album is under 40 minutes long. So we pop through pretty much almost everything on the album, but the songs are very short. So I'm still able to stretch out and do plenty of songs that are old favorites. And it's just, you know, I have to say, on the level of gratefulness that I have experienced being over here and doing this after having to cancel and reboot it 3 times, and all that we've been through. And I mean, there's such an outpouring of human emotion in these shows that we've been doing, because everybody's just like Whoa, we're all still reeling from the last 3 years and the pandemic and all the ways it's affected us. So, I mean, I could spend the whole show getting people to cry about that, but I kind of want them to get away from it, relax, have fun. So we do a lot of parameters. We cover all the bases. And hopefully we leave you feeling good at the end of the show.
This is a very long tour, and I noticed that even the section in the UK is several weeks long. Are you coping?
Well, I am. It is, I'm 66 and I can run circles around a lot of people that are in my band on some things, but I'm very grateful. I'm in good health, and I'm so grateful to be here that I'm not missing any of it. And the great thing about touring this much is your voice gets in fantastic shape. So I'm singing great. I want to go in a studio and record an album right now while my voice is so happy. But then when I get home, I'm doing a bunch of dates. I'm coming back over for Celtic Connections and a couple of dates in Ireland, and I believe we're playing in Cardiff. So we'll be putting things up on the website. And then I'm doing a lot of touring next year in the U.S. Behind this record. So I'm a moving target for a little while. But it's okay. I'm not complaining.
Beth Nielsen Chapman talking to me about her live gigs. And you've been listening to an interview between Beth Nielsen Chapman and John Hebden, recorded in late October 2022. Special thanks to Beth and her management for the interview.